Hi, this is the weekly Labour report from the Democratic Alliance. Thank you for tuning in, I really appreciate it. This is Sunday the 15th of August 2021. We will discuss a few things today. Obviously, President Ramaphosa testifying at the Zondo Commission. That's important and I want to expand a little bit on it. Like he always says, his evidence did shock me, but every time President Ramaphosa hears something new, he says, I'm shocked. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the looting in Durban and Johannesburg, where it's created a situation where the department has now had to put, Department of Labour has put up a new fund. I think that might be properly handled. Well, I'm hoping it'll be properly handled, unlike the real problems we've had with the UIF, the Unemployment Insurance Fund, the Compensation Fund. I've spoken about it weekly for almost 18 months now. I'm hoping this new fund they're putting together will have some temporary relief for workers who can't go back to work because of the looting and the closure of the shops. Then we've had the ongoing closure of various government offices, the deeds office, the courts, and now we're also seeing it again with the CCMA. It's thrown a lot of fire into the action because a lot of arbitrations have just been postponed because of closure of offices. Finally, I want to have a look at what COSATU has to say about government workers who can't access their pension funds for some relief money if they are in a situation where they have to borrow money. Government is finally looking at that as well. And of course, after that cabinet reshuffle, let's have a few comments about our new finance minister, Enoch Godongwana, and how the trade unions feel about his appointment. So thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram. I'm the Democratic Alliance Labour spokesperson, and it's Sunday the 15th of August 21. We've had a cold week in Cape Town, but I think it got very hot at the Zondo Commission. We were all listening, all the lawyers obviously, and most of the politicians were listening to President Ramaphosa testifying at the Zondo Commission. The President has finally admitted knowledge of 9 years of theft, looting, fraud, you name it, everything that took place over those years. And he said it wasn't just the former president, there was a whole coterie of politicians. Seemed to be cabals, people who are employed specially to help with the looting of the public sector completely. It has left our country reeling, and it's unbelievable. You know, when you think back to those many years ago when we had the problems out of the arms deal and all the theft that took place there, that was small fry compared to what we've seen in the 9 years of President of the South Africa and his gang of merry men. This was certainly not Robin Hood, not stealing from the rich to pay the poor, but stealing from everyone, in fact stealing from the poor to pay the rich. We've seen that, and of course what the current President Ramaphosa said, that he knew that this was going on. He didn't know all the niceties of it, if you can call it that, but he knew it was going on. Now let's just talk about law over here. If I'm in a business and I'm an employee and I'm working in the warehouse and I know that there's a theft ring in the warehouse, I see them, someone signing off the goods that come in, someone signing that it's been sold when it hasn't, another person then receiving and saying they didn't receive those goods, and then they get passed through the window at the back of the warehouse to other employees who then pack it in a bakkie and steal it. I'm watching this every day. As an employee, I have an obligation, there's a duty of trust as an employee for me to go to my employer and report that this is going on. Not that I'm part of it, not that I'm aiding or abetting it, just to see that justice is being done, and that's my obligation. Like an employee, every single member of parliament has an obligation to come forward and report theft of this nature. There's no debate about that, that's the law. So now we have our current president, who was sitting as the deputy president at the right elbow of President Zuma, knowing full well that there was state capture going on. They weren't stealing a loaf of bread. They weren't trying to feed the hungry. They were stealing billions and billions of rands. We still don't know, the jury's out, how much was actually stolen. How much will ever be recovered? Probably very little. Probably sitting somewhere else. There's that old joke that, where's the new capital of South Africa? And the answer is in Dubai. The reality is that the current President Ramaphosa is guilty of not reporting that immediately, coming forward, regardless of whether he was playing the long game, regardless of whether he had a plan eventually to tell people what it's all about. He waited 9 years, if not more, to come forward and tell the story that yes, I've been watching some of it, and yes, I knew it existed, and yes, I had choices. I could have resigned. I could have come forward and I would have lost my position. I wouldn't have made much help then. But that's not your decision to make. No one, we're all equal before the law. And no one has a decision to make like that. We know what the law is. Our deputy president is deemed to know what the law is, and if he is watching wholesale theft, should have come forward and said so. No good telling us now, when the cat is out the bag, when the horse is bolted. You can't lock the stable doors now. The money's gone, probably never to be seen again. And so I suspect what will happen now is that there's going to be a lot of debating and a lot of fighting as to whether there's any liability on the current president and whether he's going to be handed over to the National Prosecuting Authority to prosecute. Being culpable. He kept silent throughout those years. There was no golden silence here. He was silent. This has been so gross that it's left most of our state institutions unable to do their task. It's left the country in a real dire strait. The Democratic Alliance is not going to let that rest. We're going to keep fighting that, going to keep pushing that everyone gets prosecuted. Where do you go from here? Well, what we do know is that the Zondo Commission now has to finalize and dust off their paperwork, put together a report. That report in turn, unfortunately, has to go to the president, who might be culpable. President Ramaphosa's got to see it, hand it to his lawyers, and he should, as quickly as possible, be signing it off. Well, who knows? He might want to play the long game here and see how it pans out first before he actually signs it and makes it public. It's not going to be so easy. There have been commissions in the past where the public don't know what has been investigated and how it's turned out. But with the Zondo Commission, the public have been watching it with a beady eye. People have been reporting on it. All the news stations, all the newspapers, every single TV station and radio has been handling this. It's not going to go away, and the president is absolutely wrong if he holds it back to play the long game. He's going to have to do it. It has affected service delivery across the board, and he's got to do it. The looting in Johannesburg and Durban obviously has created another particular problem, and at least the Department of Labour has now come forward and they said that they're going to put a financial relief scheme together on a temporary basis. Now, the way they've handled the UIF and the compensation fund in the past has been a joke for those that haven't been affected, but those that have been affected are actually tearing their hair out. And I don't know how this particular aid is going to help and whether they'll get the administration together. A colleague of mine, a lawyer, said that the Department of Labour can't fight its way out of a paper bag. That's how useless they are. Well, let's hope that at least with this new fund that they can actually access some money and move it into the coffers of the employers, who can in turn pay the employees who are being short paid. Just to quickly tell you that the COVID is still ravaging the various state offices, Master's Office, High Court, Magistrates Court. They're closing on a regular basis because people have still got the COVID-19 now in the third wave. The reality is that even the CCMA is closed, and I know that last week on Thursday the CCMA in Cape Town was closed. It creates havoc for the employees who are waiting to go to the arbitrations. They've spent a lot of money getting there, getting a lawyer maybe, getting a trade union to help them. Not been easy, and then their cases then postponed. One has to feel sorry for the employees who've been dismissed and retrenched and want to somehow go forward. So that's a real problem. The Democratic Alliance, over 2 years ago, had put together, Dr. Dion George, MP for the Democratic Alliance, put together a wonderful idea of being able to get access to your pension money to pay some of your debts that you had incurred when you weren't able to work over the period of the pandemic, and for any other emergency that might arise. That was turned down flatly by the ANC, and now seems to have been accepted by our government, but they're still saying that government workers can't do that. And now COSATU's come forward and shouting the odds and said they're going to actually make a big noise about that. Be interesting to see how that pans out in the future. Then, of course, quickly, just my short comment on the shuffle and the soft shoe shuffle with regard to the new cabinet. We got Enoch Gondwana, MP, who's now the Minister of Finance, has been sworn in as the Minister of Finance. I think he's got a tough job ahead of him, but it's going to be sad to see the end of Tito Mboweni, who at least understood the plight of small business. I'm not sure if Minister Enoch Gondwana has got any understanding whatsoever, but what I do know is that when I was at the CCMA this last week and I've encountered some of the head office staff of some of the COSATU trade unions and chatting to them, they're not very happy about Mr. Enoch Gondwana MP because he was involved. He got his hands a little bit dirty a few years back with monies that went missing from a pension fund of a trade union. So just with that short note, thank you very much for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram, Democratic Alliance spokesperson, Sunday the 15th of August 2021. Keep warm, keep safe, and keep COVID free. Thank you.